Alright, so last night I ended up getting around to watching Don't Look Up, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence, and I gotta say, it was a pretty good movie. I did have a good time with it. This movie has been anticipated for quite some time, and currently, for the past week now, it has been on the top 10 list on Netflix, and I'm not surprised because of simply who's in it, the director, Adam McKay, and so forth. Now, before I get into the review of the video, make sure to leave a like and to subscribe to the channel if you want to keep up to date with all my content and you want to see more movie review videos. Now, to continue on this line of discussion with actors, this movie is star-studded. And, sometimes when a movie has this many stars, it can kind of crack under the pressure and maybe the hype doesn't always live up. But I would argue that this movie does keep up and it does it pretty well because not every huge named actor in this film is a prime focus. They still find a way to keep it centered on the top 2 to 3 actors of the movie. So in the film, your main characters are obviously Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence, and then your tertiary character, you have Rob Morgan. But then when you look at all the B and C actors and actresses in this film, just listen to how big this movie is. Meryl Streep, Cate Blanchett, Jonah Hill, Mark Rylance, Tyler Perry, Timothée Chalamet, Ron Perlman. You even have special guest appearances from Ariana Grande and Kid Cudi. And there's just so much more. And I gotta say, in the movie, everyone is acting brilliantly. Everyone is doing a good job. It doesn't feel like they're just there to be there. It does feel like they are doing their job and they are doing it right. Now, obviously, you can't have a Leo film without talking about Leo. And as of recently, Leo hasn't been doing many movies because he's been doing a lot of producing and he's been doing a lot of documentaries. He is very involved in the global warming climate change scene. So when he does films, it seems as of recently, he does a new movie maybe every 2 years. And I think I understand why he took some time to act in this movie because it's not so much a climate change movie, but I do think there are a lot of aspects in this film that definitely interested him. And simply, it's Leonardo DiCaprio, dude. When does this guy do a movie that he simply is not brilliant in? Every movie he does, he acts his heart out. He is so good in every single movie. It's to the point with this guy that whenever he's in a movie, I don't care how bad the movie may be, if it's even going to be bad, I just immediately think to myself, how good is he going to be? And it's not a question of, is he going to be good or is he going to be bad? No, it's more so a question of, is he going to give me a 10 out of 10 performance or is he going to give me a 20 out of 10 performance? He hits on all cylinders every time he's in a film. And even if this movie doesn't interest you, at least with plot or anything, just watch this movie for the actors and especially him because he never disappoints. So when I was watching this film, it does give me some semblance of almost like The Office. Some of the camera work they do in the movie makes me feel like I am watching an office. And even outside of camera work, simply the world built around it. And what I mean by that is when you watch The Office, more often than not, you have Jim and Pam in the middle of a world that is completely insane and quite frankly ridiculous. Jim and Pam in The Office are the two people who think rationally, whereas the world around them with Michael, Dwight, and all the supporting cast of The Office, they're a little more insane and do things that regular people don't do. And that's the vibe I got from Don't Look Up. I feel like Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence are these two somewhat normal people in a world of lunatics. And I feel like everyone in this world moves around like it's a game, whereas Leo and Jen are trying to show the world how dire of a situation this is. Essentially, without ruining too much of the plot for you if you haven't seen it, Jennifer Lawrence's character finds a comet that is skyrocketing towards Earth, and within 6 months, it will hit Earth. Yet the comet is so wide in range that if it were to hit anywhere on Earth, it will completely annihilate the human race and it will become a extinction level event. So when going around in media and the White House and government officials and trying to tell the world this is a serious situation, the world around them is reacting like it's one big game or one big joke, and no one takes it seriously. Especially Meryl Streep as president, she doesn't feel like a president. It almost feels like it's a high school competition. And then you have Jonah Hill, who is her son in the film, but is almost like her right-hand man. And you kind of see how the hierarchy of power is, where he's basically like this kiss ass towards her who will do whatever she says and say whatever she says. And that actually leads me to the next discussion, is societal issues. And I think Adam McKay really brings that out very well in this movie. There is a part where DiCaprio and Lawrence need to go on this talk show, and they need to tell the world what is going on with this comet, and that if they don't take things seriously, then they're all gonna die. And on this talk show, Tyler Perry and Cate Blanchett, they essentially play these two anchor men, this egotistical duo who doesn't really care about anything but the ratings of their show and the comedy of what's going on. And it really shows in this film to me that not only do government officials not take things like this seriously, but society in general doesn't either. There are so many situations in this film where people are more concerned about the status of a celebrity than they are about the survival of our civilization. People would rather see what happened on the latest episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians than they would about finding ways to save our planet or, once again, save our civilization. And I think that is a very disturbing fact that Adam McKay was capable of delivering to the audience in a very clever and honest way. And there are countless scenes in the film where DiCaprio, Lawrence, and Rob Morgan's character all have to go to the White House to discuss the current situation with the comet heading towards Earth. And there's this one particular scene where they're in the White House, and the president, Meryl Streep, and all the government officials inside of this room are essentially saying, you know, how much of a threat is this really? Leonardo Dicaprio says it's a 99.7% or something like that, because they don't want to throw around the term 100%. But 99.7 is pretty much 100%. But the president and all of these government people sit here and say, all right, let's just say it's 70% and we'll assess the situation as time goes on. And it feels like that is what would happen if a dire situation like this came about. And I got this feeling throughout the film. I believe our society and people on Earth would find it so unfathomable and so disturbing and scary that they would try to use any way possible to sit here and convince themselves that either one, there is nothing they can do about this situation, or two, that it just seems so insane that it probably won't happen anyways. And it does often seem, especially today, that people do not like to face the facts. They do not like to face the truth. And once again, Adam McKay really hit on that brilliantly. There's a great part with Jennifer Lawrence when they're on the talk show with Cate Blanchett and Tyler Perry, and she loses her mind and she starts screaming, and she's like, you know, we're all gonna die and no one's taking this seriously. No one's listening to us. No one seems to care. And she storms off the stage and goes into the back room. There's a part right after where they're showing the graph of the ratings, because prior to her outburst, they had Ariana Grande's character on this talk show before they had Leo and Jennifer Lawrence. And it's so interesting to me. It's that same thing I said, that people are more concerned about celebrities' lives than our own civilization. The graph showed in the film more people tuned in to listen to Ariana Grande's character about her broken relationship in the movie than they wanted to tune in to Leo and Jen's character talking about impending doom from a comet that will destroy the entire Earth. And I gotta say, I think that's how it would work today too. Like in reality, I think that's what people would end up doing. And in that part of the movie, when Jennifer Lawrence gets frantic and freaks out, they show more graphs of the airing of that episode, and they show that the viewership on their segment didn't grow until Jennifer Lawrence had that breakout. People started to make memes about her and stuff, which is exactly what our westernized society would do nowadays. We would take something so serious and make it into a joke. People just jump on trends. They jump on the easiest trends. They jump on things with absolutely no knowledge or research of their own. They just jump to things that sound good to them or sound easy to them, or even in a way sound safe to them or more comfortable. And I'm gonna repeat for the fourth time, whatever now, Adam McKay captured that brilliantly. And you can see in this film how our fame-crazed society can change people, because in the film, Leonardo DiCaprio's character has a lot of issues, mental-wise, stress-wise, anxiety, all of that type of stuff. He doesn't do well speaking to people or being in crowds. He's very shy, has to take a lot of medication. And as the movie transpires, he starts to get a little more comfortable in front of the camera. The comet issue is such a hot topic on the internet that he starts being invited to other talk shows or TV shows where he appears as a guest. He starts doing commercials for TV. He hooks up with Cate Blanchett, this beautifully powerful anchor woman who makes him feel like he's more than what he's always believed to be. Even with something so dire and so serious, our society today can find ways to strip that from you and make you focus on things that you previously would have never cared about. His character would have never cared about being TV famous and being loved and being fawned over. But as the movie continued on, he started to change a little bit, where he was now loving that type of stuff. And you do see a real hero's journey with him in this movie, because he needed to go back to who he was before. He needed to get back to work, and he needed to focus on the real threat, which is the comet, not being famous. Now, I love space. I love everything about it, and I research and dive into it whenever I get the opportunity to do so. But contrary to popular belief, I don't know if you can tell, I'm not a scientist or an astronomer. Although in saying that, the science behind this film is quite accurate. Adam McKay did not walk into this movie and essentially say, okay, you know what, let's just make a random comet crashing towards Earth and it's going to destroy everything. The size of a 10 to 15 kilometer wide asteroid striking the Pacific Ocean of Earth would absolutely demolish our planet. We and everything we know would be absolutely destroyed. We'd be done. Everything we know about the planet would be gone. Our civilization, animals, the atmosphere, the ecosystem, everything is done. And that size of a comet flying at the speed it was, I'm pretty sure a 6-month window is pretty well accurate. That's how it would actually be. So a lot of credit goes to him for being able to take this serious enough to make scientific research part of this movie. Now, I will say the biggest downfall of this movie is actually the villain, who is played by Mark Rylance. And his character in the film owns a company called Bash. And essentially, the first time you see him in the film, he's introducing this brand new phone technology that when you hold it, the phone is capable of capturing your emotions, and the phone will suit you depending on your emotional needs. And during that first moment you see him, that is when he ends up getting the news of a comet skyrocketing towards Earth. And you don't see him until maybe halfway through the film. And this is the point where they send Ron Perlman out into space with a bunch of nukes to change the trajectory of the actual comet. And just as they're headed into space, they turn Ron Perlman around and they parachute all the nukes to safely glide back into the water. And they don't go through with moving or potentially destroying the comet headed towards Earth, which now changes everything. All of a sudden, the tone of the film has changed because halfway through the movie, they were on their way to victory, but all of that changed because of the villain of the story. So this is where you could tell that the owner of Bash basically has more influence and more power over the president, and it's because Mark Rylance's character ended up finding out that this comet had a mad amount of resources. Trillions of dollars were residing in this comet, and that if they were capable of taking advantage and mining it and blowing it up into little pieces so that it could come surround Earth in its orbit, they wouldn't have to worry about the comet destroying Earth because they could simply get rich off of it. And then as the film goes on, you end up finding out that he has this nanotechnology and all of these drones that can fly up to space, attach to the comet, deploy bombs inside of the core of the comet, and blow it up into pieces. And obviously, by the end of the movie, that doesn't end up working. It is the blindness and ignorance to money and power that essentially fails humanity and the villain that owns this Bash company. Now, why I'm not a huge fan of that whole situation is because when he was introduced, you barely see him until maybe the middle way through the film. And I just wasn't a huge fan of how much power he held over the president. I'm not saying that there aren't people like that exist out there, because there probably is. I would have just maybe liked that story kind of dived in a little bit more, because another thing I didn't really like was Meryl Streep as the president. She didn't feel presidential. Like I said earlier, it almost just felt like a popularity contest and almost kind of a joke. And I just wasn't a huge fan of that vibe. Once again, it's not something I hated. It is what it is. It's part of the world. It's part of the movie. But the villain, I think, could have been dealt with a little bit longer. I think what it suffers from the most is just the lack of explanation. I would have maybe liked a little bit more time spent there. Now, the end of the movie is actually very interesting because essentially they fail. And the world does end up getting hit by the comet and completely destroyed. And I actually don't really know how I feel. I don't know if I like the ending. I don't know if I dislike the ending. It's a little hard for me because usually by the end of a movie, with everything going wrong, you expect the end of the movie to potentially have something going right for it. But by the time this movie ends, basically all the main characters just accept their fate and they spend their last moments doing things or spending it with people that they kind of want to spend it with. And then the comet hits the planet and the entire planet implodes and gets destroyed. But where I'm kind of battling my feelings with this ending is I don't know if it was the right ending. I feel like it could have been and it also wasn't. I feel like the end of the movie should have been maybe a payoff for some of the main characters. But I also think to myself, maybe it was the perfect ending because this movie is to essentially show to us what is actually important. And I think the message that we should be taking from this film is don't take what we have for granted. Our civilization, our planet, our home, every single day we do take it for granted. We don't think about it all that much. We have a place to live, ground beneath our feet, but we don't think of it as you know, something could potentially happen to our home one day, especially if something like this happened, and yet all we think about are the lives and statuses of celebrities and other prolific items and people. And honestly, you know what? After that little speech there, I think the more I think about it, I do actually enjoy how the movie ended, because I think he wanted to show you what you can lose like that. Now, I could keep talking about the film and giving things away, but I won't, because I highly suggest you should check it out for yourself. So now I'm going to get into my rating of the movie, but like usual, let's check out on IMDb what it's sitting at. Currently, right now, for the audience review, it is sitting at a 7.3 out of 10. And then for Metascore, oddly enough, it is sitting at a 49 out of 100. I am very, very surprised about that Metascore review. A 49 out of 100 is not what I thought this movie would have. I thought at the least it would be hitting like a 61, 62 out of 100, which is good for Metascore. But a 49 out of 100 is very interesting for me. So this is a movie I'm actually going to be a little higher on than most reviews. I'm gonna give this film an 8 out of 10. Is this a movie I would watch multiple times? Probably not. I don't think I will ever watch this movie more than 5 times in my life. But the reason why I give it an 8 out of 10 is because just how much good it's got going for it. The acting, the actors and actresses, and the message that Adam McKay tries to deliver to the audience throughout the entire film. Maybe the genre and style of this movie I could understand if people were giving it a 7 or a 6 out of 10, but overall, a movie as a whole, for me, it's an 8. But anyways, everyone, that is it for this review of Don't Look Up. Thank you all for watching. And like I've mentioned before, if you haven't seen this film, I highly suggest you watch it, even if it is just for the acting. But that is it for this one, everyone. And until next time, I will talk to you all very soon.